Did you guys hear that Dracula passed out on New Year's Eve? Yeah, there was a countdown. Promise I won't make any more dad jokes for the rest of the year. I think the consensus is that 2020 and 2021 were both kind of shit-ass years. But maybe not so much for the gun community. Between pandemic and civil unrest throughout the country, I think we all had friends that we haven't heard from for years in our DMs asking for help picking out some hardware for the first time. Now let's ignore the fact that this surge of new firearm owners learned everything that they know about gun handling from keeping up with the Kardashians, and let's just celebrate two of the most successful years in the gun business. Cheers, boys. More new gun owners means more new guns, and there were quite a few good ones this year. So I polled the Firearm Blog's writers, and I looked at video view counts on TFBTV to see which 5 guns the media and the audience liked the most in 2021, and that's today's list. Let's start the only New Year's Eve countdown that matters, the TFBTV Top 5. Now, our number 5 gun is a bit of a cheat, as this rifle was originally introduced in 1990, but it got a little respawn and refresh in 2021. This was also the most purchased gun by TFB writers, as pretty much everyone on the crew who got to shoot this gun for the first time at TFB Gunfest in January all bought it. So we all love this gun, and it seems like you guys did too. Previously, the only copies of this gun that we could get stateside were crappy imported and converted versions. But in January 2021, the newest version of the Zastava M90 was announced, and best of all, Zastava said that they would be importing it into the US themselves for the first time. That meant that we started getting unmolested, unconverted, pure 5.56 caliber AKs straight from Zastava in Serbia. The new Zastava M90, or as I like to call it, the Nasty Zasty, is a 223 caliber AK, same caliber as the AR-15, rather than the 7.62-39 traditionally used in the AK-47. As a result, the M90 is softer shooting with better long-range performance than the original 7.62 AK. The 2021 version has a 1.5mm RPK style receiver with a bulged trunnion. Basically, it's overbuilt like a light machine gun. It also has a cold hammer forged chrome line and threaded 18-inch barrel fitted with an adjustable gas block with 3 settings, including a suppressed setting. The furniture was also upgraded from the factory with a folding Zukov stock and a grip from Magpul and an outstanding rubber handguard by Hogue. It has a sight rail that accommodates Zastava's excellent low-profile optic mount, and the gun also comes with new polymer magazines, lighter and cheaper than traditional steel M90 mags. The new mags are $25 each, but they still have steel reinforced locking lugs for added durability. Accuracy was great with my copy of this gun, as Ryan and myself managed to get a couple of smaller than 2-inch groups at 100 yards with non-match ammo. Yeah, it's a little pricey at $1,200, but it's arguably the best 223 AK on the market right now with this royal flush full of features. This wasn't as hot as the other videos. Only got about 300,000 views between the intro video and the review, but it's easier to find a Serb without a Vich at the end of his name than an unhappy M90 owner, so this gun definitely deserves a spot on the list. As you know, number 4 is our controversy slot, because you don't lead in the video with a Kel-Tec, and you don't put a Kel-Tec in the top 3 either. Hell, I think this gun personally is so impractical, I'm not even sure it belongs on this list. But when my review of the Kel-Tec P50 gets 1.1 million views, which is more views than any other gun on this list, I can't deny the people's choice. Like the M90, the P50 was announced at TFBTV's Gunfest back in January. The absolute madmen that you know and love at Kel-Tec decided it was high time for them to produce a 5.7mm firearm. 5.7's claim to fame is that it's an extremely light but extremely fast moving round that has the capability to defeat body armor, and in spite of its lightweight, high capacity, and its low recoil, tests have shown that it will create a permanent wound cavity on par with much larger 9mm hollow point projectiles. The cartridge came about in the early 90s, and yeah, there's a handful of guns that are chambered in it as we sit here today, but I'm surprised there aren't more. The cartridge is famously used in the FN P90, but the only way civilians can get their hands on something approximating the P90 legally is to buy the hideous, civilian-legal, semi-automatic PS90 with a 16-inch butter barrel. And then after that, you have to pay $200 to the ATF to make it a short-barreled rifle, not to mention a few $100s to either buy a replacement short barrel or to chop down the factory 6-inch barrel on the PS90. All said and done, you're in the hole for well over $2,000, but you get one mean short-barreled SMG that has a 50-round capacity. Kel-Tec's a controversial company for a number of reasons. While they tend to make innovative and reliable firearms on the very low end of the price scale, they're constantly out of stock. And to get that low of a price, true story, Kel-Tec makes their guns out of recycled Saturn ions and ocean plastic. Very progressive of them. With the P50, you get a lot of benefits of the FN P90, but without the headaches. It uses P90 magazines that, again, hold 50 armor-piercing killer bees. You get a shortened barrel that's already threaded for a sound suppressor, and if you didn't know it, you can use most 22 cans with the FN57 round. Just check out our TFBTV video where we did exactly that. No silly 16-inch barrel, no pain-in-the-ass conversions, and it cost half as much as the PS90 does. The only reason it's not higher on this list is that at the present time, it's relegated to being a range toy. Let's be honest, guys. It's a 3.5-pound pistol that's heavy as awkward to shoot without a buttstock, and there are no buttstock options. Kel-Tec also put a QD sling socket in the place where maybe they could have placed a little bit of Picatinny rail for using SIG stocks and braces. But wouldn't it be really funny, just saying, if Kel-Tec hypothetically introduced a stock specifically for this gun at maybe SHOT Show? Just thinking out loud. Don't have any inside information there. Number 3 is also going to be a little bit controversial itself, and in a weird theme, we're talking about yet another FN gun. FN discontinued the legendary original Wonder 9, the FN High Power, in 2018 after 83 years of production. The High Power came out in 1935 when men were men, semi-automatic handguns were low-capacity jam-o-matics, and full bush was in. FN's High Power resolved the main issues there by manufacturing a reliable handgun with a decent capacity that could kill a man at 50 meters. While we, the United States, opted for the 45 ACP 1911 in the early 20th century, a lot of the world chose to go with the higher capacity 9mm High Power, including countries like Australia that still issue the High Power to this day. What likely led to the High Power's demise was the fact that it had a crap trigger and it wasn't the most ergonomic pistol. Shooters could sometimes get slide bite from it. Oh, and although the 13-round capacity in the High Power was great like 100 years ago, it was eclipsed by the next generation of Wonder 9s that came out in the 70s and 80s, which all came with 15-round or 17-round magazines. Seemingly out of nowhere in 2021, Springfield Armory decided that they would make an almost one-to-one clone of the High Power with 90+% parts interchangeability. They call it the SA35. Springfield brought back the High Power, but also thoughtfully addressed the issues with the original. For one, the magazine disconnect safety was removed because that's what caused the awful trigger in the original High Powers. And the SA35 has a fantastic trigger. Magazine capacity in the SA35 was upgraded to 15 rounds, and Springfield also added a beveled magazine well that makes mag changes easier. The SA35 uses a cold hammer forged barrel with a re-profiled feed ramp for extra reliability over the original. Ergos were also improved with a larger beaver tail that eliminated slide bite and a larger, easier to manipulate safety. Finally, Springfield introduced the gun with excellent sights. Even with the modern upgrades, the throwback aesthetic is spot on, as the SA35 is gorgeous with minimalistic engraving, walnut grips, icing on the cake. The original High Power MSRP'd for $1,100 before it was discontinued, but the improved Springfield version is just $699. This pick's a little controversial because A, the High Power was technically introduced in 1935, but we're going to give the new SA-35 a pass because this is technically a new gun. It's got a bunch of different upgrades. You guys also watched my video. Over 400,000 times in the first 72 hours my review was released. And although my copy's been perfect, I've also seen some reviews that mention QC issues. If that's true, I'm hoping Springfield gets all that ironed out. For now, I'm going to point out that the gun came out exactly 2 months ago, so some issues with the initial run is disappointing, but not unusual. But I see this gun as being successful if they get those kinks worked out, and probably their lineup being expanded in 2022. Moving on to number two. Two of the most successful guns that we've seen in recent history have been the SIG P365 and the Smith & Wesson Shield. Introduced 10 years ago, the Smith & Wesson Shield was one of the first micro-compact single-stack 9s from a major manufacturer. It was very popular because it was durable, reliable, small, and cheap. The Shield's popularity only diminished after the introduction of the SIG P365, when SIG brought the first micro-compact double-stack to the market since the Kel-Tec P50. And SIG absolutely knocked it out of the park, almost single-handedly making all single-stack 9s, like the Shield, obsolete. After all, why carry a gun that only holds 7 or 8 total rounds in a single-stack magazine when you can get 11 or 12 rounds in a double-stack gun that's practically the same size? Although it took them 3 or 4 years to do it, in 2021, Smith & Wesson released real competition for the SIG P365 when they introduced the Shield Plus. Smith essentially took their 7+1 round Shield and gave it 10+1 rounds in a platform the same size, and even somehow managed to make the gun lighter than the original Shield. It gave everyone who already loved the Shield a familiar manual of arms with the same great features. Smith even sweetened the deal a little bit with a brand new trigger that's probably the best stock trigger for the entire M&P series. All this, and it's less than $450 street price. You guys out there watch my review of the Shield Plus 600,000 times this year, so you seem to like it too, which is why it's appropriate for number 2. Now, before we get to the top pick, let's hit 3 runners-up real quick. My review of the Ruger Max 9 got 300,000 views, but it wasn't included on this list because I didn't want to have 2 micro-compact double-stack 9mm on the list, and I think the Shield Plus did it better. Although the Max 9 is a very well-featured pistol for the money, being optics ready and including night sights, while being cheaper than the Shield or the P365. Now, the B&T Station 6 pulled 166,000 views. It's an integrally suppressed bolt-action 9mm pistol, basically a super quiet ninja assassin gun. It's not in this list because, number 1, B&T has been teasing this gun as the VP9 for years, and 2, while I got to test fire the Station 6 during Gunfest, I still haven't received a review copy to fully test out. Finally, while the Smith & Wesson M&P 12 Bullpup shotgun review almost hit 1 million views and was one of our most popular videos in 2021, first, it's a pretty close copy of the Kel-Tec KSG shotgun, and second, if you recall, it was subject to a recall almost right after it was introduced. Now for TFB's best gun of 2021. This pick might be a little bit of a surprise for you, but if you listen to the reasoning behind it, I think it maybe makes the most sense out of all these guns. First, it's a design that hasn't been done before. The Zastava M90, awesome as it is really just an improved version of a gun that's already been around for 30 years, which in turn was an improvement of a gun that had been around for 40 years at that time. The SA-35, forget about it. It's a refresh of the gun that was invented almost a century ago. The M&P Shield Plus is more or less the same format as the SIG P365, the Hellcat, the Ruger Max 9. Even the innovative Kel-Tec P50 borrows pretty heavily from the P90, both of them being 10-inch barreled straight blowback 5.7 caliber firearms using the same top-mounted longitudinal magazines. But our number 1, nothing like it yet, even though the video pulled in a modest 250,000 views. My opinion, the humble 380 doesn't get a fair shake. Although it's the same diameter as 9mm, 380 can be used in guns that are much smaller and lighter because the 380 generates only 21,000 pounds of pressure, while the 9mm creates 35,000 pounds of pressure when fired. That means the 380 is less powerful than the 9, but if you carefully select your ammo, there are several loadings that will meet or exceed FBI standard of 12 inches of penetration through ballistic gel and still give decent expansion. They're lighter recoiling, which helps with critical shot placement, and 380 will work in smaller, cheaper platforms than 9mm. The Micro 9 SIG P365 super compact double stack idea took off for 9mm, so why not 380? That's what Ruger did with the Ruger LCP Max. The Ruger LCP is, of course, Ruger's extremely popular single-stack 380. Light at just 9.6 ounces, only 0.8 of an inch thick, with an MSRP of under $300, but it holds just 7 total rounds of 380, and it has awful sights. Ruger took the LCP, copied and pasted the P365 formula into the 380 column, and boom, the LCP Max was created. The LCP Max has the same slide width as the original LCP. It weighs only 1 ounce more than the LCP, and it's got maybe 1/10 of an inch thicker frame, but it holds 11 total rounds, a substantial increase in capacity for a marginal increase in size and weight. Plus, Ruger added better sights as well as a front tritium night sight, an added bonus. And to make matters better, most LCP holsters will still work with the LCP Max. I'm not saying that carrying a 380 is a better choice than carrying a 9mm at all, but I am saying that it's amazing that Ruger gave concealed carriers out there the option to jam a whole entire gun and 11 rounds of FBI standard meeting ammo in your front pants pocket. I predict we'll see at least one play on this from another manufacturer in 2022 because it's genius. Guys, thanks as usual for watching. Thank you to Top Gun Supply, your online shooting sports superstore. Thank you to Ventura Munitions, the best ammo store on the entire planet. Here's hoping that 2022 ends up being a 2019 fun year mixed with a 2021 gun year. I'm going to be spending New Year's Eve tonight with Lindsay, which reminds me, how many people does it take to have a great New Year's Eve party? 2 and a 5th. Cheers, boys. Take care.